Hi everyone, thank you for joining me for another YouTube video. This week we're going to be talking all about rendering with graphite. Now, what I'm going to share with you guys is actually, I think it took me 35 minutes in total, and of course I'm going to condense it down and make this video more, approachable so you don't have to sit here and watch me render for 35 minutes. But I want you guys to be prepared. I really enjoy working with these slow, calm methods. I like taking the time to get my pencil sharp and working in this way. If it doesn't work for you, do not stress. There are other ways to get beautiful results with graphite. I'm just going to share what works personally for me, and that is a very kind of slow, calming way to work. Now, again, there's no right or wrong with how you go about rendering with graphite, so I'm just here to share my methods and see if they could help anybody else. So all that being said, let's go ahead and get into it. To get started, you'll want to see my previous video on how to sharpen your graphite pencils. If you really don't want to sharpen that way, you can use a long point pencil sharpener or however you best like to sharpen your graphite, because for this kind of rendering, sharp pencils really make things easier. So you're going to see how I build a slightly lighter strip to start, and this is generally how I always render with graphite. I start with a lighter pass and I slowly bring it to full value. The lighter pass can be done with anything from a 2H to an HB, though if I'm using an HB, I try to keep the pressure very light, as again, you'll see in this example. Once that lighter pass is done, I'm going to take a moment to sharpen my pencils just to make sure that everything is ready for that full value pass with graphite. So I am only going to show you guys me stopping and sharpening my pencils once in this video, but I'm doing it, I would say, pretty constantly, about at least every 10 minutes in the span of this 30-minute, drawing session, and potentially more. So I would say between 5 and 10 minutes is when you should expect to stop what you're doing, sharpen your pencil, and then get back to the rendering. I'm starting my full value, portion of rendering this strip at the dark end of the strip, which also mimics how I like to draw, which is from the shadows into the light. And I'm using an HB at this point so I can go straight into my full value range. If I start to get the dark dots, I'll pick them out pretty early on. As you'll see, I'll start to be using that kneaded eraser because it's easier to do that earlier on than once you have more graphite down on the surface. So it's another thing to keep in mind if you want to render this way. Again, you'll see that I use the kneaded eraser up to the final stages of this project and of this, rendering tutorial for you guys. But again, just something to keep in mind, don't intentionally put off all the dot picking to the very end, and think about doing it in these earlier stages as well. Now, I imagine if you've gotten to this point in the video, you probably have, heeded my warning about this being a slow process, and you'll see that it is just a slow process as opposed to any special technique. But I do want to dive into that a little bit more. I know I already mentioned it in the intro, but I want to talk a little bit more about why I like this method and like this way of drawing and painting. Because I find it very meditative and calming, and I really enjoy putting in the time that gets these results. And again, I'll repeat, art is subjective and there's no right or wrong way to do it. And if you aren't interested in getting really into the grain of the paper in the way that I'm doing, if you're not interested in getting graphite to look seamless, then don't stress about it. Because there are other methods and tools and techniques that can achieve beautiful results, and this is just one method out of many, many, many methods to make any kind of artwork. And my whole motivation with this channel was just to share things that helped me and hope that it can help someone else on their art journey. But I'm not here to be a dogmatic perspective that tells people that there's only one way to do things. So again, hopefully you've seen enough of these videos and you get where I'm coming from with that. But I just wanted to reiterate it here for anyone who might be new to the channel. So at this point in the video, I definitely recommend switching to a 2H. It goes down a little bit lighter and is a little less grainy looking, so by the end of the video, I've pretty much used only 2 pencils, an HB to a 2H. I might have at some point used an H, but really those are the 3 pencils that I go through the most, and I would say the 2H and HB specifically are the ones that I find myself always having to rebuy, so clearly they're getting the most amount of use. Now, another thing that I want to suggest to you guys as something to try out, because again, it's something that worked for me, is I will put down that initial layer of HB and I'll use my softer pencil to start, and then I layer on top of it with a 2H. I find there's something about using that softer pencil, that HB, to get kind of the base layer down and then going over it with a 2H is kind of just smooths out the appearance of what I've done before. I've even gone up to a 4H in moments to do that, to just, again, use that harder pencil to kind of break down the grain of the paper, and something about doing that with this softer layer of graphite underneath, again, just gets me results that I'm drawn to. But that's my personal opinion, and in my experience, what has worked for me. I definitely know there are other people who maybe even layer the reverse. They start with 2H and they go with HB, and they get beautiful results. So it's to each their own, but if it's something that you've been struggling with, I do want to share that that is personally what helped me achieve smoother graphite results. One other little tip that I want to share that I use to dot pick those little dark dots without taking off too much graphite is to create a little patch of graphite off to the side like I'm doing now. And I'll tap my kneaded eraser into that first before trying to tap away at a dark dot in the area that I'm trying to pick out. So this creates a small graphite buildup on the eraser, and so it won't take off as much graphite, which is really helpful in the dark areas, because when you're doing that final refinement and kind of like little tweaks stage, you don't want to create a bunch of little white dots in the darkest part of your strip that you then have to, fill back in with graphite. Now, it's not foolproof. Sometimes the graphite buildup is too much and I don't take off any of the dark dots that I'm trying to, and other times it's not enough and then I still end up with white dots. So it's not a foolproof suggestion, but it is something that I do still. So again, that's why I'm sharing it. And this particular thing was something that BJ Parker of Gateway Atelier out in St. Louis had recommended to me when we were both students back in Texas. So I'm passing it along to all of you guys as well to just share the knowledge. that's pretty much all there is to it. It takes a lot of practice and patience, but I found that it does get faster over time and honestly much more enjoyable. So just put on a good podcast and give it a try. I hope the video was helpful. I hope you guys can kind of see what I mean when I say I work slowly, and that I enjoy working this way. I find it really a very fulfilling way to go about making art, but I know that's not why everybody gets into making art. Sometimes you might want to be more expressive and go about things more loosely, and that's totally fine. So obviously if you prefer working that way, then don't listen to me, ignore me, and go learn from people whose skill is working that way, in that more like kind of loose artistic painterly fashion, because you can get beautiful results that way. So I'm just sharing what works for me, and I hope it was helpful for you guys, and I hope to see you around for another video.